This week on Quality Digest Live, we'll explore innovation, Ford Motor Company style.
Plus, what does a value stream manager do? We'll find out, right?
When we come back.
When we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for August 7th, 2015. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest Editor-in-Chief, Dirk Ducharme. So I'm assuming that all of you watching this show know how important quality is. After all, you're in Quality Digest, right?
Live.
So how important the quality function is to everybody. We all understand that. It's how organizations improve the products and services the world relies on for our safety and health and our daily lives even. For quality professionals, an important resource and source for quality information, training, and conferences is the ASQ, the American Society for Quality, which brings together, this is their charter, to bring together people, knowledge, and ideas to help you meet your company's growing needs and challenges as it relates to providing quality goods and services. Now, if you work in the service industry, you face some unique challenges that those in manufacturing don't have. You don't necessarily have a tangible product that can be visually or mechanically inspected, for instance, something you can hold. Your product is people skills and knowledge, how your people interact with others while delivering their service, and how to deliver a service that meets your customers' needs while staying economically competitive, right? Just ensure the success of your business. That's what we all want. Now, just as with your partners in the manufacturing world, there are quality tools and methodologies that can help you improve your processes, identify issues, and measure customer satisfaction in the service industry. And ASQ has a whole bunch of resources for service providers like you, including a unique opportunity to meet with experts from the industry at the 24th Annual Service Quality Conference on September 28th and 29th in Orlando, Florida. At the conference, you'll be able to connect with other service quality professionals who will share their success stories. And you can acquire valuable knowledge on a lot of topics relevant to service quality. And you might even be able to immediately apply what you've learned to new or ongoing projects in your own workplace. So for more information on the 24th Annual Service Quality Conference in Orlando, September 28th, 29th, just follow the link in the player page below.
That's right. ASQ, you know, as you mentioned, I mean, they're really the organization or industry that really gathers professionals together, and it really is a great resource. And the other thing you mentioned there was this idea about service, you know, being a little more amorphous than manufacturing. You know, it's harder to maybe track some value streams across service than it is in manufacturing. You know, our industry really began in manufacturing, you know, really with automotive manufacturing particularly in most cases. But service is really where we see a lot of the explosive growth and a lot of the protocols of quality and a lot of the methodologies of quality. So a lot of you out there in our audience increasingly are in service and transactional environments. So check that out. ASQ is a really great resource. If you're not an ASQ member, consider it because it's really a good resource.
I would even say that even if you are manufacturing, there is obviously a service component, or very often a service component to what you do. There's people whose only job is to service customers, regardless if you're a manufacturer or not. So there's still value in a conference like this, even if you're in a manufacturing-based industry.
Yeah,
so.
Always good stuff from ASQ. Thanks, Dirk. Yep. All right, well, next week on Tuesday, August 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to present our latest free webinar. This time it's in conjunction with TÜV Süd America. And the title of the webinar is ISO 9001:2015, Avoiding Nonconformities During Transition. This webinar is going to be presented by TÜV Süd's Randall D'Amico, and it's hosted by our very own Dirk Ducharme, right here to my right. That's Dirk. Well, in an article that we published on this topic in Wednesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily, D'Amico laid out the highlights of the points he's going to be discussing during this webinar. Essentially, he summarizes the key changes between the 2008 and 2015 versions of ISO 9001. He identifies challenges to be aware of, and he points out recommended actions that can make the transition a little easier for all of you end users out there. Now, there's been a lot of chatter, we've heard it, we've read it, we've talked about it ourselves, about the changes in the new version of the standard, and there's certainly been a lot of questions too about what those changes mean and how they're going to be implemented.
So, and some controversy as well.
And some controversy as well, because I think that there's some language in the standard that still needs to be really looked at and fleshed out and understood by end users out there. So, if you want to ask questions of an experienced certified lead auditor of management systems, well, here's your chance. Check out the link in Randy D'Amico's article, which is right below this video player screen right down there. And you can learn more about the topic, and you can also, of course, register for next Tuesday's webinar. It's a free webinar, so you can register for it, come out, listen to Randy's presentation, ask questions, and learn more about this. Like I said, there's a lot here that's different, and there's a lot of questions that all of you have about this. So I certainly encourage you to tune in, check out that presentation, ask questions again, because it's a good opportunity.
I would add to this that there's a lot of people who look at registrars as, well, let's be honest, the enemy. They're coming in to audit you, and they're going to be looking, they're going to be scrutinizing your company. So if you want to get an auditor's perspective or a registrar's perspective of what they say they're going to look at, then this is a place to go. I mean, why not ask a question? So if one of your auditors comes into my company and asks to see such and such, what should I be showing them? I mean, this is your chance really to talk to the people who come into your company. It's a good opportunity. So I suggest you sign up for it.
Check it out. Yeah, again,
it's free.
It's free webinar. Check it out. It's next Tuesday at our normal time of our webinar is 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So go out and check that out.
All right. So when I say Ford, what do you think of?
Cars.
There you go, or trucks, right? So what is this Ford's mobility thing that we keep hearing about? I mean, we reported on Ford's mobility program months ago, actually about a year ago, I think, and it is only just now hitting the mainstream media. In fact, I heard an interview with somebody from Ford where they brought up mobility, and the commentator mentioned mobility, and it's actually kind of the first time I've heard about it, but it's been an ongoing project with Ford for a while. Well, our own Ryan Day had a chance to revisit Ford's mobility program in a one-on-one interview with Ken Washington, who's Vice President of Research and Advanced Engineering at Ford, to get an update on how far the mobility program has come. And just as a reminder, Ford's mobility program is a series of projects and ongoing research that expands Ford's automotive technology and expertise into subjects as diverse as parking, ride sharing, multimodal transportation, and that's just to name a few. Things that have to do with automobiles, but aren't automobiles. The main thing is that Ford is taking a holistic look at what its customers' transportation needs are, and I think this is kind of unique. It's a smart move for Ford, for sure, and it isn't all altruistic. I mean, sure, a lot of these ideas that they're coming with are going to be good for the environment, and they're going to help transportation density in urban areas and all that. But listen to this quote from Washington. I think this kind of says it all about kind of with the flip side of what this does for Ford. People are going to make choices. And if you let them have their choices, people are going to shape their own mobility journeys the way they want. We want our customers to have an experience of interacting with Ford that reflects the fact that we've given them those choices. Get all that kind of Ford-centric stuff going on there. These ideas are a way for Ford to expand the brand into other areas, that kind of non-automaking areas, while at the same time doing something good. You can only make so many cars, right? And in the future, who knows? We might live in a society where not everybody has a car. So Ford is kind of getting a head start on all that. Let's look at a couple of examples. These are interesting. One is Go Drive. This is a car sharing project which is running in London right now. Basically, there are hubs around the city. Think parking garages. Yeah, call them parking garages, in which, and you find these hubs using an app which also lets you reserve your car. And then you go to the hub and you open the car either using the app, unlock the car using the app, or a Go Drive card that you hold against a sensor in the car's window, and that opens a car for you. You reserved it. It's 17 pence per minute all the time. You only pay for the time you use the vehicle, and you can use it for one-way or return trips. So one-way or round trips, obviously to a hub, right? And there's no membership fee. Now the interesting bit to me is this. The purpose is to reduce congestion on London streets by people sharing cars, not everybody using their own car. And the cars they're sharing are Fords, of course.
Yep.
But doesn't that mean fewer cars sold? Perhaps fewer Fords sold? Well, maybe not if you are the first one off the block to set up such a program, because these hubs are populated by what? Ford Focus Electric or Fiesta EcoBoost vehicles. These are Ford vehicles. So Ford is getting out there ahead of the pack, setting up these drive sharing systems, which are going to use Ford vehicles. So maybe as people move away from everybody in an urban area having a car, that might be less Ford sales there, but they're not losing sales because you still have to populate these hubs.
Right, that 17 pence per minute is going to go.
17.
Part of it's going to go back to Ford as well.
And so, sure, exactly.
So that's that's that too.
Yeah, and actually, this is what I love about this. It's kind of counterintuitive. We are going to sell more cars by having people use fewer cars.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
I mean, but you have to be kind of the first one off the block to make it work. The idea here is that you leverage your product or expertise in a completely different way. Here's another idea from Ford: multimodal transportation. What the heck is that? Well, that's where you combine two different forms of transportation into one trip. So you might use, let's say, car sharing coupled with Ford's e-bike. That's an experimental bike, electric bike that Ford has come up with. You might car share, let's say, to a nearby hub, and then e-bike the rest of the way. Or maybe you e-bike to work. It starts to rain, so you leave work by using a car share to get home. And by the way, the e-bike folds up and fits in the trunk of the car. They're being designed so all these things work together. So your Ford e-bike folds in half, you put it in the trunk of your car. So two forms of transportation. Now, Washington said that the idea came to them because they were getting feedback from customers that the various mobility solutions available weren't solving the entire customer need. Whatever solution they chose, the customer chose, would get them like 80% there. But for that last mile, so to speak, they needed another way to get where they were going. So again, the idea that we make cars, therefore you use a car to get from A to B, that whole idea kind of goes out the window. Ford is asking, what does the customer want or need, and give them that. By the way, this is very Steve Jobs-ish, if you think about it, thinking for the customer. Right. Ryan and Washington talk about a couple of other mobility projects as well, and I encourage you to read the article, but the main takeaway is that we all sell some sort of product. We have expertise in some area. We need to look at our customers holistically. What is it they really need? If our product is only getting them 80% of the way, then we need to learn how to use our knowledge and expertise to help take them that final mile. And what does that look like for your company? I think it's a great question. I think it's really interesting that Ford is taking this approach, and I think more companies need to do it. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're right. It is a journey that you take your customers on, and you have to be with them the whole way. The other thing that's really interesting here is the term you mentioned several times throughout your article is branding. And branding, for marketing people like myself, branding has taken on something of I don't want to say it's a dirty word, but it's become misunderstood, I think. I think people don't understand many times the power of a brand if it's done properly. And Ford's brand, of course, is a very powerful brand.
Sure.
And they have done it properly over the course of more than a century now. And so when Ford makes a move into a market like this or begins to explore doing something very different, the power of branding and having built a brand over the course of a century really begins to become preeminent. Everybody wants to, of course, when you interact with customers and get new customers, you want to just get leads, right? I mean, you want to have people you can sell to. But ultimately, the softer approach of having a brand that has answers and solutions, and maybe answering some questions for customers that they're not asking yet in the Jobsian approach, as you mentioned, is part of that too. But the brand, that central hub, if you want to use the hub term that you mentioned as well, that central hub of the brand, and off of the brand comes solutions, is really, really powerful. And I think it's misunderstood. I think that we have to understand as marketers and as salespeople what a brand can do for our customers if we do it right. And Ford's done it right.
And I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but The other thing that goes on is, remember, one of the really smart things that Apple did a long time ago was making apples available for really cheap or free to schools.
Yeah.
So you come up through school using an Apple. So what do you buy once you get out? You buy an Apple, right? Well, if you're using something like drive sharing, and you're driving, Fiesta EcoBoost or Ford electric vehicles, you're getting kind of primed to what? To buy a Ford.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
Of course. It makes a lot of sense.
You begin to establish that relationship, and you carry it forward through the life of the brand and through the life of the customer.
Yep.
Really important stuff. Well, the other term you mentioned was holistic in that, which was really interesting because that ties in the term of a holistic approach to what you're doing in terms of serving quality and serving your customers really ties in nicely with this next article that I'm going to cover. The article was titled, "What Does This Guy Do?" And it was written by Brian Maskell, and it ran in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. So the guy in question that he's talking about is the value stream manager. And we'll talk about what a value stream manager is here in a second if you don't know it. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Brian Maskell if you don't know who he is. He's a leading proponent of lean systems, particularly within the realm of accounting, but really throughout management. I mean, when most people think of lean, they think of mostly manufacturing or service industries, but they think of processing their product, the thing, the service that they're offering. But a huge part of lean is the back end. Do you have a lean system that works in your accounting? There's a lot of ways to mess up a lean system. You can do everything right on the shop floor, but if you're not accounting properly, if you're looking at some very backward-looking metrics in terms of how you're measuring your success, you're never going to succeed with lean. Maskell is an accounting guy. And that's where he comes to lean from, is from that world of looking at it, the money throughout the organization, how that flows. So that's very important to remember as we get into this story. So to achieve continuous improvement in any discipline, including accounting or manufacturing, whatever it is, it takes lean thinking. And to embrace lean thinking, one has to understand the concept of flow. And flow really talks about the way in which parts and services or products, whatever it is, move and are processed in ways that ultimately lead to some value for some customer. This is known as a value stream. This is a very different approach than what non-lean companies look at in terms of creating stuff for a customer. They look at an individual product and doing that and just doing that, but they don't look at what touches all those other things. And again, we're going to talk about what a value stream manager is here, because the value stream manager really begins to get the value out of that process where non-lean companies can't. An organization's value stream manager, or managers more appropriately, because usually large organizations have many more than one such person. That's the person who best understands what the organization is doing holistically. And what it is it's really an entrepreneurial role within the broader context of the enterprise, because ultimately the role of the value stream manager is to make the company lots of money, lots and lots and lots of money. So you need a person with an entrepreneurial bent. That person has to be a leader because he or she is going to be spending a lot of time at the Gemba. He or she's going to be mentoring people. He or she is going to be developing cross-functional teams. And they must also have a strategic vision of how to fulfill customer needs and, of course, drive continuous improvement. Again, a value stream manager owns their value stream, owns the whole thing. And they don't just own the manufacturing part of it, they own the accounting part of it, they own the customer service part of it, they own the strategic and the tactical part of it. They own the whole thing. So that person's got to be an entrepreneur within the broader company. And a successful value stream manager is going to be somebody who brings that to it and says, it's my responsibility to make money, cut costs, make money for that individual value stream. Very important. So it's a lot to ask. I mean, it's a lot to ask for a person to do all those things. But in a lean organization, these leaders really own, again, those value streams, and they're the ones that really are going to make lean profitable. I mean, more than even the people in the C-suite, more than the people that are on the floor. These people that you can look at kind of in the middle. You can almost consider them middle managers in some sense, because they're not often C-suite people. They're not often people that are the high-level executives. As Maskell points out in his article, they can come from the production floor. They don't have to, but they can often come from the production floor. But they're people that really aren't rolling up their sleeves and doing the work, and they're not making the strategic decisions for the organization. They're in the middle there, and they're the ones that really make a lean operation operate in a lean way, because again, they're going to own that entire stream of information. They're going to own everything that that product touches. And if they do it right, that particular product stream, that value stream, is going to make a lot of money. It's going to be very, very successful. And again, if you have a large organization, you have 8, 10, 15, 20 of these across the span of the organization, you're going to be really, really successful, because each one of those people who owns that value stream is going to be accountable for making that work. And that's really lean thinking in a broad sense, because again, you're touching everything that value stream does. From operations and production, to marketing, to sales, to customer service, to billing and collecting, everything. You own that if you own that value stream. Very different way, and it breaks down the silo approach to an organization. You know, no longer do you have people that are saying, okay, well, I'm in HR, or I'm in billing and collecting, or I'm in customer service. You know,
would they be kind of a facilitator, or, I mean?
That, from what Maskell says, yes, a lot of what they do is they facilitate. I mean, you're going to spend a lot of your time on the Gemba. He talks about how you do meetings, and that person isn't the person that runs a meeting or organizes a meeting or says we're going to have a meeting. That person will attend those meetings and will be totally involved in everything that's going on, but those meetings are going to be owned by the people that report to that value stream manager. So that person is going to be out on the Gemba, involved with the process and mentoring and coaching and building their teams. And the weekly accountability meetings that person will attend, generally speaking, won't be run by that person, because it's not that top-down approach. That person is part of it's an interesting thing. They're a leader, but they're also really part of the team, and they have their leader standard work too, which is something that Mike Micklewright talks about a lot, is leader standard work. It's a very interesting and intricate connection. It's very, very different from what a non-lean organization does. But when you look at it this way, and again, you can't forget where Maskell comes from on this. You need to include your accounting in this.
Yeah, okay.
If the accounting piece of this isn't there, it doesn't matter what else you do. But if the accounting piece is there and you're measuring things in real time, you can be really, really successful with this approach to management.
Okay, yeah. Brian Maskell.
He's a leading guy. I mean, really well-known guy, leading guy in this space. So check out the article again, right below the video player screen right down there. You can check out that article and read more about it. Okay, well, we have a live in-studio tech corner for you today, and that means that Dirk, you're in a moment here going to teleport across our expansive studio, and he's going to show it to you. So he's going to do that in a minute, and whilst he does that, I'm going to let you know a little bit about the tech corner equipment today that is going to come to us from the Mark-10 Corporation. They're located in Copiague, New York, and this is their latest product. It's their WT3 2001M motorized wire crimp pull tester. And to give you all the details, I'm now going to throw it back to my partner. So Dirk, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so as Mike said, this is the right here in front of me is the WT3 201M wire terminal tester. We have had wire terminal testers from Mark-10 before in the studio. Oh boy, it's probably been a year or so, except it was a manual tester. The way a manual tester works is you put your wire, let me grab a wire here, you put your wire in the tester, you pull down a lever, it stretches the wire, and the wire eventually breaks. The tester measures the breaking point, checks whether it's between your programmed upper and lower limits, and displays a pass or fail, and sends the data to computer. All that. So this is basically the same thing, except it's automated. Now what this does is, rather than a lever pulling down and stretching the wire, you've got a cam and the cam is right inside here. You can see it on the gauge cam kind of. It pulls the wire, but the thing is, it pulls it at a constant rate. And that is important, because if you think about the way a manual tester works, you might have one operator come in, they may yank down on the lever, the other one may come in and just gently pull down on the lever. So you get a lot of variance in the operator themselves. This takes the operator out of the picture. Now it just works, pulls at a constant rate, which can be programmed. So you might have a fast rate for some tests, a slower rate for other tests, and it takes all the variation out of it. Now I'll show you how this might work. I've just got and we'll get to some other features, but this isn't in automated mode right here. So I'm just going to put my wire in here. I'm going to hit start. Let me zero that out. It's going to grab that wire. It's going to pull it. It's going to pull it until it breaks. And as soon as it breaks, the test is over. It shows me on my display here my peak that it read. Also gives me a pass because it was within my programmed limits, and then it automatically resets itself. Now I have it set to automatically reset. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can have it wait until you manually reset it. You can do it that way. I have it to automatically reset. So this is how you typically might use this. You would just keep putting wires in here and breaking them, seeing if they're within your units, within your upper and lower limits, and you obviously, this is a destructive test, so you're going to be using samples. But this unit, because it's automated, can do a couple other things which are pretty intriguing. So I'm going to go into my menu here, and I'm going to set up a different type of test. This one is called a pull to load. So in this case, rather than pulling until the wire breaks, it's going to pull until the wire reaches, or the tension reaches, a predetermined load. If it makes it that far, it passed. So it doesn't pull it until it breaks, it pulls it until it reaches the load, and then says, okay, you're good. So let's see what that looks like. I'll put this in here and let that go. Now if you watch the display, it's going to ramp up, then it slows down. 42. 42 is what I had programmed that pull to load to. We see we hit it. We see the green check mark. That means it passed. And now we're reset, ready for the next test. Now there's a variation on this. Let me get another wire. There's a variation on this. I'll go back to the menu. And this is called load holding. Some standards require that that not only do you pull to a load, but then you sit and hold that load for a certain amount of time. That basically what they're testing is that it's not good enough that you just reach the load and you're good. You have to be able to sustain that load for a certain amount of time. And you can program this to be whatever you want. I've programmed it for 10 seconds. So let's see what might happen here. So I'm going to put this in. I'm going to start my test. Whoops. Okay, start my test. It's going to pull to my predetermined load, which is 35 pound force, and it's going to sit there and it's going to hold it for 10 seconds. And as long as it lasts for 10 seconds and doesn't break, it's passed. And there you go. So it passed. So those are a couple of the things that you can do with an automated tester that would be almost impossible to do with a manual tester. Now there's a few other things that you can do with this unit. It does a whole lot of stuff. I don't have time to run through all of it. It is hooked to a computer. If we go to the, okay, now we're going to go and look at the software that you would typically use with this gauge. This is the Measure Light software. This particular software is fairly straightforward. All it's doing is capturing the data, allows you to export all of your data once you're done to Excel. From Excel, you could either analyze it in Excel or you could bring it into another, say, more advanced SPC software to do more data analysis. There's also another type of software, I think it's called Measure Gauge, which gives you a lot more functionality than Measure Light does. For most people, Measure Light is fine. It's really just data collection because you're really just going to export it and use it somewhere else. If you're not hooked to a computer, most people are, you can use this unit on its own. You could take it out to the production floor. You can capture up to 4,800 units in it, measurements in it, then take it back to your computer and download it into Measure Light or Measure Gauge and do your analysis if you need to do that. So 4,800 samples you can take with this. What are some other options? You can optionally do a date and time stamp on all of the data. That's an option for it. So the base price for this, it's pretty inexpensive, honestly, for a unit of this type. It's $39.50 for the base unit as you see it here. If you want to get all the options, you can buy the options separately, or you can buy a whole package of options for $1,850, $1,850. I mentioned the pull to load option, the load holding option. There's also a profiles option. If you're testing a lot of different types of wires, a lot of different types of terminals, you might want to be able to save the test parameters for those. And you can do that with profiles. You can save them out, different profile for each type of test, then the user can bring those back in and set up the test very quickly rather than having to manually go in and set it. So again, this is the wire terminal tester from Mark-10. This is the model WT3-201M. If you want more information on it, you can click on the link below the player page. That should take you out to the page on the Mark-10 site that is specific to this unit, and learn more about it. And thanks to Mark-10 for sending this along to us. We appreciate it. Back to you, Mike.
All right, well, there you go. That is the model WT3-201M wire crimp terminal tester, as Dirk said, from Mark-10 Corporation, Copiague, New York. Thank you again to Mark-10 for sending that to us. Dirk, good job on the Tech Corner as always. You always do such a fine job on those.
Sure, yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm brilliant.
You have that kind of a mind. I don't know what kind of a mind that is exactly, but it's the kind you have. Well, we're coming up to we're coming up to the end of the show. But that means, of course, that one last thing we have for you. That's our tweet of the week, and this one comes to us from Twitter user Cameron Morrissey. That's right, not that Morrissey. Cameron Morrissey quoting author and philosopher Alfred Montepert, who said, "Don't confuse motion and progress. A rocking horse keeps moving but doesn't make any progress." That's true. A rocking Dirk does too. And those are wise words. And for more wisdom on things like management, methodologies, standards, and making progress, of course, be sure to check us out on Twitter at Quality Digest.
That's right. And that's the end of today's show. But just a reminder, TÜV-SÜD webinar hosted by Quality Digest, ISO 9001 2015, Avoiding Nonconformities During Transition. And that's on Tuesday, August 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
That's right.
And like I said, you know, if you're going to 9001 2015 and you want what it looks like from the auditor's perspective,
check it out,
or the registrar's perspective, this is the place to go.
That's right. Check it out. That's next Tuesday. So keep an eye on your inbox. You can register for that webinar in Randall D'Amico's article as well, below the page down here. But check out your inbox. We'll be emailing you about that again early next week. So be sure to check that out. Well, that's our show. Thanks again for all of you for joining us. Thank you again, Mark-10, for sending us a great product for our Tech Corner. That's it. We'll see you next week for another week of QDD, and we'll see you back here next Friday for QDO.
So long.
Thanks. Have a good weekend. Bye.